So this week, I'm back working on my rock crawler. I appreciate everybody who's followed along during this entire build. It's taken me a little longer than I wanted to get it to this point. Some of the reasons why is this spring we got busy with different trips and different rock crawling trips and just plain rock crawling, and also just keeping the maintenance on this thing going. This summer, kind of the same thing. So I could have gotten this done a long time ago if I would have just focused on it and stayed on it. What I wanted to talk about in this video was going over some of the reasons why I did what I did, now that this thing's sitting on its own weight. Now, I talked about it being low. I wanted to keep it really low. So if you look right here how low it is, this isn't going to be ride height. I'm going to have several inches of up travel, so it'll be a little bit taller, probably somewhere around here. But the goal was to keep this one really low and stable. Because this one's not going to be, this isn't going to be a go fast car. This is going to be just a slow rock crawling car. So you can see here, I got the rear axle steered. There's a lot of considerations that I had to do when trying to make a rear axle steer at 45 to 50 degrees. You can see the control arm down there, the shock location. I did videos on all that, how I flexed everything out to try and make sure that that was all gonna clear. Another thing you'll see here is I've got air shocks on it. Now, I talked about in the one video I was going to use some 18-inch coilovers because my air shock order got messed up and I didn't want to wait for the air shocks. Well, long story short, I had set everything up to run those longer coilovers, and then the right air shock showed up. So they put in a new order for me, and I thought the order was canceled, and then these showed up, which is great because these 16-inch air shocks is what I designed this chassis for. And when I talk about that, you can see right here, this is at full bump between the bottom of the cage right here, the bottom of the chassis where the fuel tank sits. I barely have enough room to stick my hand in there at full bump. That means I'm using my full range of suspension without hitting the chassis, and I made that just about as close as I can make it. So I'm using all the up travel that's available in this chassis. Now, the same thing goes for the front. We'll take a look at that as well. Up here in the front, I can barely get my hand in between the two as well. Same thing. I was able to get that full range of suspension and have that much up travel because the way I mounted the shocks. So the shock is not mounted up on top of the axle. It's mounted actually a little bit lower than the center line of the axle tube. And same thing up on the chassis. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure this was all going to clear and that it was going to flex at every range possible with the steering every way possible. Those are some of the considerations I took in place, and I made videos along the way showing exactly how I did that. This thing is very close. It's very ready to go. What I'm working on right now is just finishing up some of the fit and finish. I have a little bit more vacuum line work and a little bit more of like the vent tubes for the valve covers. And I'm just routing that to an oil catch can so that when I get at sharp angles, I don't have oil coming out of the valve covers. I like to run catch cans, and what that does is when you're at a hard angle, and oil could be coming out of the valve cover, it's not sucking it back into the intake and possibly hydro-locking your engine. Instead, it's going over to a catch can, and that's how I run it on my other rock crawler as well. So this thing, I've got it pretty well full of fluids. I have to go through and check a few things, like I got to top off the transmission. Now that I got it started, I've got to top off the diffs, the front and rear diff. But the cool thing is, I've got this thing, the power steering and everything, all filled up. So another thing I wanted to talk about was how I kept everything so low. As you see right here, that seat, I have the passenger seat out right here, so you can see just how that seat is basically sitting on top of the transfer case. I can't even get my hand between the transfer case and that seat. That's how close they are. I can't even get my fingers to fit between there. And what I did was make everything fully removable. This dash, it's fully removable by 4 bolts. The 2 bars that the seat's mounted to, I've got tabs on this bar and then tabs on the main part of the chassis. Those are fully removable. So you take the seats out, you take those tubes out, you take the dash out, and the entire transfer case, transmission can all come out right there. I did that for several reasons. It just to keep everything as tight as possible and to make it easy to service. The skid plates on this, I'm using AR, abrasion resistant plate. And the reason why is because you slide over that time and time again and it doesn't leave deep gouges or wear out. I've had just regular mild steel type plate wear out over time. And so you can see on this other rock crawler, the abrasion resistant, after 3 years of sliding through the rocks, barely, I mean, it's got scratches, but they're not deep gouges and it's not wearing out. So the skid plate on my old rock crawler is removable. You can drop it out. The new one I'm building, it's just welded to the bottom of the chassis, and I don't feel that I need to make it removable because everything comes up right and out of here. So if I'm pulling that stuff anyway, this stuff has to come out regardless. And on my other rock crawler, I end up pulling the transmission up through the seat area, even though it can drop out the bottom. It just seemed easier when I've done it in the past. So that's how I did this one. I've got the skid plate on there, drive lines. Everything's starting to fall into place. I still have to put my synthetic rope on the winch and a few things like that, but things are really starting to come together. Now I can kind of show people why I did the things that I did. All these panels, they're all put on with quarter turn fasteners. So once you put the seats in, all the panels are quickly removable with similar aluminum style panels, and they all use quarter turn fasteners like right here. So all of that can be easily removed. So you can get down and get your hands in there. I've been on the trail before with other rigs that I've had and other people, and there's nothing worse than when something happens right back here and you can't get your hand in there because it's all bolted together. So when you use quarter turn fasteners and you're on the trail, you can just pull those panels up and get your hand back there real quick. It just makes it so quick and easy to access things on the crawler. I need to finish up cleaning up some of this wiring a little bit. I'm going to kind of clean it up. I've got everything in place where I want it, but I got to go through it and just clean it up a little bit more. Sometimes the first place that you put wires isn't the place that maybe you wished you would have originally. So I can start this thing up and show how the steering works. So we got it fired up. Fires up pretty good. So we'll look at the steering here. You can see just how far that steering goes. The idle's a little rough right now because I've got some vacuum hose work I got to do. Let's take a look at the rear. That's turning really nice. You can see just how sharp I can get that steering. And you can see just how tight everything's got to be in there to clear all of this. there it goes. It's running good. I got the tires all straightened up right here. Kind of get an idea what it looks like with the tires straight. And everything's turning out well. I'm starting running. I just have to finish up some fit and finish things. I got to finish just a whole punch list of small things, but the important thing is the big things are done. I've got the coolant in there. I've got the power steering in there. The coolant flows through the frame, back up to the radiator in the back. It goes to the radiator in the back, flows through the radiator, and then goes back the other side. And so all of that's working well. So just trying to get all these little things hammered out so that this thing's ready to go. Well, that was fun, working it around the garage, just kind of playing around right here, making sure everything works, making sure the transmission drives, seeing how the gearing is. These brakes, although I need to bleed them a bit more, they definitely work better than my other brakes. They definitely got some air in them still. So I just need to work on bleeding them a fair bit more. It's amazing how you can navigate around in such tight places like this with rear steer. It just makes me realize how much I've been missing out on over all these years, and all these guys I've been running the trails with rear steer, navigating through all these little tight areas. Well, I've been working my 32-degree steering drag axle car, trying to work through all this stuff. And then you can just see how you navigate around such tight areas with this. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I still got a ways to go, but hey, it starts, it drives, it steers, it's got brakes-ish. They do work good. They just got some air in them. But even with air in them, they work better than my other brakes, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait to take this thing out for the first time. Hopefully I'll get a shakedown run on it soon. I'm hoping.